What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in today. This show is called Idiots on TV. And here we're going to take a look at very smart people saying stuff on TV that is just wrong and needs to be corrected. The point of this is that you can actually learn the truth and as a result of this, outperform these smart guys on TV. Today we're going to talk about Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is a guy that I usually respect. He's basically the best investor in the world. He has no clue about Bitcoin. So the whole point of this show today is for you to understand what Warren Buffett does not understand so that you can beat him when it comes to Bitcoin investments. Today we're going to take a look at the first clip that I remember on CNBC where he looked at Bitcoin and compared it to a money order. Let's take a look at this clip first. After you've watched the clip, we're going to recap what his points were, and then we're going to go through them and explains where he's right and where he's wrong so you can have a better understanding of what the truth really is.
I was at a conference, the Allen & Company conference in Arizona, the tech conference, and Bitcoin was the big two-syllable word that everybody was talking about and trying to understand. I'm just curious of your thoughts on that.
Stay away from it.
Stay away from Bitcoin.
Well, it's a mirage, basically. I mean, it's a method of transmitting money. It's a very effective way of transmitting money, and you can do it anonymously and all that. A check is a way of transmitting money, too. Our checks are worth a whole lot of money just because they can transmit money. Our money orders, you can transmit money by money orders. People do it. I hope Bitcoin becomes a better way of doing it, but you can replicate it a bunch of different ways, and it will be. And the idea that it has some huge intrinsic value is just a joke, in my view.
That's interesting to compare it to those things. Have you thought of that? It's like, yeah, I mean...
That's what it's doing, it's transmitting.
There's something that the checks are actually drawn, you're drawing upon something. It's not the...
You're transmitting money.
It's up with value.
Yeah, it's dollars on both ends. I mean, from the guy that puts it in.
Right.
Yeah.
What?
Isn't it a ledger? It's a ledger, right? It's an electronic ledger.
Yeah. It's a very fast money order, anonymously.
So Warren Buffett is basically claiming that Bitcoin is a mirage. A mirage basically means something that appears real but is actually fact. The second thing he says, it's just a way of transmitting money. It's just like a check or a money order, and its functionality can be replicated. Thirdly, he says Bitcoin's intrinsic value is a joke, so it doesn't have any value, so you shouldn't buy it and shouldn't invest in it. And then he also says it's anonymous. Now, first of all, is Bitcoin an illusion? Well, the answer is maybe, maybe not. I personally think that Bitcoin is a new technology that is developing in an S-curve. Warren Buffett thinks Bitcoin is a bubble that's going to burst and eventually the money is just going to go away that you put into it. Now, I think in general, people misunderstand Bitcoin. They do not understand the technology, what it actually is. This is not unexpected because we humans, we think in patterns. So when we see something, it must relate to something else. Bitcoin is so new and so different. It has never existed in history. As a result, it's just very hard for people to understand what it is. Because people cannot really see it, they believe it is fake. Now, I think Warren Buffett does not understand the technology of Bitcoin and as a result, cannot see why it is valuable. It doesn't fit any of his other patterns that he uses to analyze his investments. However, just because he does not get it does not mean it is not valuable. It also doesn't mean just because he doesn't get it that it is valuable, of course. So here's the thing. What you need to do, you need to make up your own mind. You need to understand what Bitcoin is, and then you need to understand or analyze whether you think it is valuable. And if you can make a better decision or if you can understand it better than Warren Buffett, then you can beat him. So this is what we're trying to help you here in this video as well. So one of the first thing he claims, Bitcoin is just a transmission of money, and that is absolutely correct. Sending of value or sending of Bitcoin is a very core thing in Bitcoin. Anything in a blockchain is basically, when you want to do anything, it's a transaction. Transaction is essentially sending of value and information. That is really new, what Bitcoin has created. Now, absolutely, this is not revolutionary. Any monetary system can be sent or can be transferred amongst us. It's not that special. So he's absolutely right on that just because you can use Bitcoin to send money, that doesn't really make it special. Now, one thing he says when he talks about it is it can be replicated. So it's a very basic function. Everybody does that. And that's not entirely correct, because Bitcoin is an unconfiscatable transaction. So a Bitcoin transaction cannot be interfered with at all. And so this is not something that an existing banking system can produce, aside from cash. So when you have cash, you can actually transfer it. But what Bitcoin provides is a digital version of sending money or sending value that cannot be tampered with or cannot be confiscated. And that is something that an existing banking system cannot reproduce. Overall, the fact that because Bitcoin can send money, it's not valuable, is not really that relevant. Of course, any sort of money can be sent, and yes, Bitcoin can also be used to just send money. However, there are more relevant aspects to Bitcoin and blockchains that make them valuable, and sending of money is not it. So I think this is a little bit of a distraction, or again, something where he doesn't really see what is behind the mere sending of value in Bitcoin. And so either he's trying to distract, or he doesn't really understand what is really happening with Bitcoin. So this is kind of a, yes, it's correct. You can use Bitcoin to send money, but this is not the same type of sending as is available in all the other existing system, and as a result, it cannot just be replicated by the existing banking system. Now, he also says that Bitcoin doesn't have any intrinsic value, and this is just plain out wrong, in my opinion. Now, here is why I think Bitcoin is valuable. Bitcoin is a very new technology, and it's a fundamental new technology, a foundational technology. So basically, Bitcoin invents two new things. It creates a new organizational structure. So today, when we use a banking system, we have banks. Banks live in a country, and they're trusted third parties. And in order for that to work, we need governments, we need laws, we need regulations, we need enforcement of these laws and these regulations. All of that in Bitcoin is replaced with basically a game of value. This whole way of organizing how all of this works is replaced in Bitcoin by a game of value. So instead of relying on parties or companies or governments that we elect and we trust, we just have this game that just is out there and anybody can join. So laws and policies, so laws in the sense of governments and policies in the sense of companies, are replaced in Bitcoin or with blockchains with a protocol. So this is basically the game rules. And the enforcement of these laws and the enforcement of the rules is basically happens automatically via incentives. So you have this economic system that just works, has incentives, and because it has incentives, it makes it so that it cannot be tampered with. So instead of having, you know, these trusted parties that make sure everything works and are thus rent-seeking, you have this incentive system that also costs money, but overall is just much more efficient. So that's one of the reasons why Bitcoin is valuable. And this new organizational structure, in my opinion, is just a lot more effective and efficient than what we have in the old school system. Bitcoin also creates a new form of money that is completely and entirely digital. If you take a look at our existing money, it is actually not digital. All of its management is manual, right? So this is the reason why when you send money around in the world, it takes so long, because there are manual processes that can be reversed, that are controlled by people in the end, or organizations that are controlled by people in the end, and can be reversed and that sort of stuff. So Bitcoin is a new digital form of money that is entirely unconfiscatable. So instead of having a monopoly protecting it, i.e. the state and its rules, we just have this thing that is accessible to anybody in the world, and just kind of works. So this is a very new form of money that Bitcoin has invented. And that on its own is also, in my opinion, very valuable. So those are the two really key reasons why Bitcoin is valuable. These things together, so the organization that creates a new form of money is basically the Bitcoin system, the Bitcoin blockchain. And that on its own, I think, is very, very valuable and creates new ways of just making money more efficient, more productive, and allows a lot of new functionalities that may be cheaper to do, easier to do, and also just things that we couldn't do before, such as having programmable money, having unconfiscatable money, having very cheap, very high security, and all that sort of stuff. Now, what Bitcoin also does, it creates new market rules, because today, or before Bitcoin, money was really protected by the state. Every state had a monopoly on its local money and could license organizations, and all of that is now different. Bitcoin is an open system that works in the state, but now in the States or anywhere in the world, and now basically competes with state money. And so also with also different cryptocurrencies compete with each other. So now, because of all this competition and this open financial market that now exists, and this new technology that makes this available, that any kid now basically can make a currency, and that currency competes with all the other cryptocurrencies as well as with the currencies from the States, that will, in my opinion, just create an evolving of a more ideal form of money. And so this is also something that is just very, very valuable, in my opinion. So these are things that create high value. Whether buying Bitcoin makes that value accessible to you may be another question, and whether Bitcoin will be the winning currency that evolves of all of this open marketness is yet another question. And Bitcoin is also just one instance of this new technology and this new form of money. There are many around, and many will probably still be created in the future, and Bitcoin also has to compete with that. But it is very clear to me that there is lots and lots of intrinsic value and the utility that these things that I just explained here provide is what creates the value behind Bitcoin, and is what makes it worthwhile to think about investing into Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Now, one of the other things that Warren Buffett said is that Bitcoin is anonymous, and that is not really correct. Correct would be to say Bitcoin is pseudonymous, because you can create an account basically by creating a random number. Essentially, a Bitcoin account is just a random number and can be created by anybody that can, roll a dice, i.e. any smartphone can create a new Bitcoin account. You could even do it on a piece of paper. Yeah, it would just be a little complicated. But so it is correct that you can create a new account and nobody knows who's behind that account. But then every transaction is recorded, and anything every account does is recorded. And as a result of it, it is very easy to figure out who is doing what, so long as you can identify any sort of action that is associated with one account. Now, Bitcoin may have the potential to be anonymous in the future. There are some anonymous technologies that could be applied to Bitcoin, but today Bitcoin is not anonymous. So what we just see is that Warren Buffett doesn't really understand the technology. That is Bitcoin. I think that is really true today. And so there is intrinsic value in Bitcoin. Most people don't really understand it. That doesn't mean that the value is not there. So make up your own mind and make up your own investment decisions.